Good morning, everyone. All right, we're working back on the XY, as you can see. We've got a little spray booth. Well, it's not really a spray booth, but we've got to protect the things that are in this garage. We're going to be laying on our epoxy today. So we're just doing little tiny things that need to be done before we start. Things like the edges of doors and stuff like that. I just want to remove all the paint just with a little bit of 80 grit so that it attaches the epoxy and it just comes around like that, I guess. Probably the best way to describe it. So all the little intricate areas that you might not be able to get to with a sander or whatever, we're trying to do them with the wire wheel. Corners like that, I've got to blow that out obviously, but that's all done and ready to go. So all these areas, they've got to be all spick and span and good to go. That rebar, dude, we've got to remove it.
Yes.
All right, there's the boys, they're ready to go as well. They're all, look at this. How good's this stuff? Now it just protects the floor because the dioxidine, as it drops down, it leaves little white spots when it touches the concrete. You know, because it is an acid, it just leaves like a little etch mark on the concrete, so just to protect it. Bonnet, we've discovered it's got a tiny little imperfection right there, like a little chunk. Let's see if we can see that. Maybe. So I don't want to put any filler there. I can fill it with my finger, so it's quite substantial. I just want to give it a quick little zap with the welder and then I'll grind it just to make it solid again. Areas like this, see, I've wire wheeled in there, got all the paint off. We're going to be laying some epoxy in there. All these little bits and pieces just to get them done, and then when we mask, the paint will sort of wrap itself around that edge a little bit, you know. Then after, when we do the door jambs and the frames and that, we do the other side, we do the same sort of thing, so the paint sort of just wraps around a tiny little bit. Alrighty, but everything's clean from the last visit. As in bay and that, we're not going to be doing that today. It's just the outer skins and all the areas that we paint stripped. So we're going to be getting all of them ready and laying on the epoxy. Alright, let's continue working. Alright, so what we're doing here, guys, we've got rust converter sealer, and just areas where we've done a bit of rust work or whatever and we can't quite get to the back, you know, 100%, we're just putting some rust converter sealer to neutralize whatever surface rust there is there and just help, you know, areas basically where we can't see. We're hoping that this sort of drips in as best it can between seams and does its job. So this rust converter sealer becomes a primable state after, it goes black and you can sort of prime over it. It doesn't stay active, I guess, you know, compared to the dioxidine, which you have to sort of wash off. So we're just going to do that in areas, you know, where we've welded. So, you know, the plate that went into there, we're going to do that area there. You know, those sorts of spots. So you can see it sort of oozing out of the pinholes. So it's good. Once that dries up, we'll give it a clean and we'll continue on. We've removed all the paint from the bottom of the sills, so the sills are all nice and clean now, ready for epoxy primer. We ended up finding a little rust spot there. That's the little plate just sort of sitting in place. It actually sits so perfectly. So we cut that little section out. We've put rust converter sealer in there to get to all the surface rust. We've, you know, removed all the flaky rust as best we can with the wire wheel, and then we'll weld that little plate in. See how it's coming through little pits. Now that area, it's not worth, I don't think it's worth me trying to, you know, weld all those pinholes. You just start blowing holes and chunks out of it, you know. So I'm just going to put the rust converter sealer, let it ooze through exactly like what it's doing there, and then it'll get a little skim of Metal Tech filler,
because I've grinded and welded there already, and that'll fill up the rest of it. But the main thing that we're trying to do is just to neutralise any surface rust, so that's what we're trying to do at the moment. The metal filler will go on after the epoxy and all that sort of stuff, so this is all metal conditioning and preparing for the epoxy. So this is why this step has to be done now. You know, we've done the doors, we've done a little bit of welding on the doors, so see what Shad's doing here. This is in between layers where we can't get to, you know, so they were never sealed 100% from factory, so best to do preventative sort of work. So yeah, right in that corner there, dude.
Yeah, yes.
But that's where we're at. Pretty much everything else has been prepared and done. Shad's done that back bumper bar area. Let's go there and I'll show you. This area here, all nice and clean now. So little bits of flaky paint, and there was little bits of surface rust or whatever, that's all been sanded back. And prepared as best we can. So this area here, that's a seam as well, and that had all sort of flaky rust. It's got a bit of pitting in it, but it's, you know, you're not going to sit there and replace that whole section. So just treat it, neutralise that rust, and then top coat it and continue on. But we're looking good. Yes, okay. I had another little plate that I had to make and quickly weld up. Anyway, that's the rust converter sealer oozing in from the back of it. That's alright. It's all the little pinholes that the MIG doesn't quite get. Anyway, that's the piece there. I thought I would have been alright. You know what? In the end, it was starting to sort of grow, and the panel had a little bit of a lump in it. Felt like a high spot. That's the rust behind it, sort of growing. So I decided to cut it out and plate it. So that's all done now. And now we are ready to read the oxidine, mask up, and lay on the epoxy. Okay, here we are. All of the oxidizing pretty much done. We've even got a manual involved. Say hello.
Yes.
We've just got the bonnet left to do. We're just drying it up, but it's come out really, really nice. And now finally we're ready to mask and lay on this epoxy. What's the time now? 4 o'clock. Oh, we're nearly running out of time. All right, let's get to it. So it's 8:30 at night. We're all done. We've already probably been done about what, half an hour ago? Maybe
Yeah, about that.
15, 20 minutes
Packing
ago,
up.
maybe. Yeah, we've just been packing up. So all done. 2 coats of the epoxy has gone on everywhere. We've made sure we've covered all the areas where we've sanded and bare metaled and stuff like that. So everything is coated now. So definitely from here on is no more metal work. There might be a little bit in the bay, is that right, Shad? There's a couple of little things
Yeah.
we've got to do in the bay.
The bay and the boot.
Yeah, so the bay and the boot, but otherwise there's nothing to be done on the external panels or external skins. So it's all ready to go now for bog work. It's been a day, but we finally got there. Mad rush towards the end there. Alright guys, we'll catch you on the next one when we start doing the actual proper body work. See yous.